Imagine a world where wealth towers in glass offices while pain crawls barefoot through the streets. One rainy evening, a powerful CEO stepped out of his sleek car only to be stopped by a trembling voice. "Only $5, please." It was a small boy, soaked, shaking, with eyes that held 1,000 stories. The CEO frowned, ready to ignore him until the boy added, "It's not for food. It's to bury my mom." The CEO froze. Something deep cracked inside him. He looked closer at the boy. Thin, barefoot, his clothes barely holding together. "What did you say?" the CEO asked, almost whispering. The boy nodded, holding out a crumpled piece of paper, a funeral home invoice, with only a few dollars remaining. The man who once closed million-dollar deals now stood speechless before a boy who just wanted to say goodbye. Without thinking, the CEO took the boy's hand. He didn't ask questions. For once, he followed his heart, not logic. He didn't know that what started as a $5 plea would lead him down a path that would shake his world, reopen old wounds, and reveal secrets no amount of wealth could hide. The next morning, the CEO found himself in a dusty, forgotten part of town. He brought the boy a pair of black shoes too big, but better than none. The boy took them with shaky hands, looked up, and said, "She always wanted me to wear shoes to her funeral." The words hit the CEO like a brick wall. He watched as the boy walked into the tiny chapel, chin high, heartbroken. Sitting in the back pew, the CEO noticed something strange. No one else came, just the boy, a cardboard coffin, in silence. When the pastor finally asked if anyone wanted to say a few words, the boy stood up and spoke in the strongest voice he could muster. "She worked 2 jobs so I could eat. I just wanted her to rest in peace with shoes." The room was still, but the CEO wept. As they left the chapel, the CEO asked the boy, "Where's your family?" The boy looked up with wet eyes and whispered, "They left, and Dad did." And then the boy added something that would haunt the CEO, "But I'm used to being left behind." Determined to help, the CEO offered the boy a ride home. But home was an abandoned building with a broken door and graffiti on the walls. There was no power, no warmth, just an old blanket and a drawing of a house taped to the wall. "It's the house I want to live in someday," the boy explained, proudly, "with a roof that doesn't leak." The CEO couldn't sleep that night. He thought about his own mansion, dozens of empty rooms, heated floors, untouched beds. He remembered his own childhood, one that wasn't so different until luck and one man's kindness changed his fate. The next morning, without announcing anything, he returned with groceries, clothes, and a small mattress. The boy stared in disbelief. "Why are you helping me?" he asked. The CEO paused, then replied, "Because someone once helped me out, and I never thanked them." Days passed, and the CEO kept visiting. Slowly, the boy opened up. One day, while changing shirts, the CEO noticed a deep scar on the boy's back. "What happened?" he asked gently. The boy hesitated, then said, "My mom tried to protect me. He hit her instead." Silence wrapped the room. The CEO couldn't contain his anger. "Who did this?" he demanded. The boy stayed quiet, then whispered, "He said we were too expensive to keep." The CEO clenched his fists. That night, he opened a bottle of aged whiskey but didn't drink. He stared at his reflection and saw himself before the suits, before the boardrooms. A scared, hungry child, just like the boy, he made a silent vow. This child would not be forgotten. He wouldn't just drop groceries and disappear. He would stay. But didn't he know that doing so would drag up his own past and the person who had tried to erase it? One evening, the boy showed the CEO a photo tattered old. "This was my mom." "In him," he said, pointing at a man in the background. The CEO's face turned pale. He knew that man very well. It was his own estranged father, the man he had left behind decades ago and never spoke of again. Shock swallowed him. Could it be? Could this boy be his brother? He didn't say anything, not yet. But that night, he pulled out an old box from his closet. Inside were letters never sent written to the father he hated. Among them, one picture confirmed what he feared. The man in the photo had lived a second life. The CEO couldn't sleep. That photo haunted him, not just because of the man in it, but because of the truth it screamed. His father had disappeared from their lives years ago, claiming business failures, debts, and shame. But here he was, in a photo with a woman who looked beaten down by life, and a child that resembled the CEO as a boy. It couldn't be coincidence. His chest tightened with a storm of emotions, anger, confusion, and a strange pull of responsibility. The next morning, he asked the boy about the man again. "Did he hurt your mom often?" The boy nodded. "He didn't just hurt her. He erased her dreams. Said rich people like him don't get stuck with broken women like her." That sentence hit the CEO like a punch. The boy didn't know he had no idea that the very man he was begging $5 from might be his own blood. The CEO ordered a DNA test, secretly. The results would take days, but the boy trusted him deeply now. They had dinners together, did homework in the back seat of his luxury car. And the boy even helped polish the CEO's old shoes just for fun. Each day they were unknowingly rebuilding a shattered legacy, one the CEO didn't know he needed until now. The envelope arrived in a plain sealed pack. The CEO stood alone in his office, staring at it as if it held a bomb. When he finally opened it, the confirmation hit like lightning. 99.9% probability. The boy was his half-brother, born out of a cruel lie, raised in poverty while the CEO thrived in luxury. Rage boiled in him not at the boy, but at the man who had abandoned them both. He rushed to the boy's side, unsure of how to even begin. "I need to tell you something," he said, voice trembling. Before he could, the boy pulled out a letter he had found in his mother's belongings. She wrote this to someone she called the first son. She said he was lucky to escape. The CEO's hands shook as he read it. It was addressed to him. The mother had known about him all along and hoped someday they'd meet. Tears streamed down his face. He finally hugged the boy not out of pity, but out of love. Real, painful, raw love. "You're not just a boy I met in the rain," he said. "You're my brother," the boy gasped. Then he clung tightly, crying into the man's shirt, two broken halves, reunited by fate. And $5. News of the CEO's time with the boy began to spread. His cold, business-first executives didn't like the change in him. "You've gone soft," they whispered. "He's a distraction." One even accused the boy of being a con artist, but the CEO didn't flinch. "If he's a distraction," he said, "he's the only thing worth being distracted for." He brought the boy into his office, showed him how to read contracts, gave him notebooks to sketch his ideas. "One day, this empire could be yours too," he said. The boy's eyes lit up, but behind the joy a storm brewed. Because someone else had overheard, and had other plans for the CEO's throne. His second-in-command, bitter and greedy, started plotting. The boy's presence threatened years of manipulation. He couldn't risk the CEO handing over power to a street kid. And so, a trap was quietly set in motion, one that could destroy everything the CEO had rebuilt. A staged theft rocked the company. Important files went missing and blame was pushed on the boy. He was seen near the server room, the CFO claimed. The boy cried and insisted he was just exploring, but suspicion filled the boardroom like smoke. Even staff who'd once smiled now looked at him with doubt. CEO was torn. Logic said to investigate, but his heart knew the boy. He wouldn't do this, he said. But pressure mounted. Investors threatened to pull out. Stock prices dipped. And in a desperate move, the CEO took full responsibility for the breach to protect the boy. That selfless act cost him his position. He was ousted the next day, coldly, without honor. They gave him 48 hours to leave. But as he walked out with his head held high, the boy ran into his arms and sobbed. "I ruined your life," he said. The CEO hugged him tighter. "You gave me one." The CEO and the boy found refuge in a rundown building. It was ironic the man who once owned skyscrapers now worked in a cramped basement, helping small businesses survive. Yet he smiled more than he ever had. The boy, too, grew stronger, wiser, bolder, hungrier to prove his worth. Together they built a startup simple but powerful. Their bond was their fuel. The CEO taught the boy discipline and integrity. The boy taught the CEO forgiveness and wonder. People began to talk about the father-son duo in the industry who were disrupting everything with kindness and grit. But just as their light grew brighter, a dark shadow returned the boy's biological father. He had learned of the CEO's fall and came crawling back, but not for love, for money. And he brought something that could tear their new life apart. Subscribe for more unforgettable stories like this. The boy's biological father barged into their small office, reeking of alcohol and entitlement. "My son deserves better than this pity act," he sneered, pointing at the CEO. The boy froze. His voice shook. "You left us hungry. You hurt Mom. Now you care?" But the man had something more sinister in mind. He had a birth certificate, and he wanted custody and money. The CEO's fists clenched. "It's not a bargaining chip," he growled. But the man laughed. "You took him without my consent. It's kidnapping, isn't it?" Panic set in. The boy grabbed the CEO's hand tightly. "Don't let him take me," he whispered. The CEO promised with his whole soul, "No one's taking you. Not again." But the threat was real. The man filed a claim, and soon the CEO found himself in court fighting not just for the boy's custody, but for their dignity. The courtroom felt colder than any boardroom ever had. The judge's gavel echoed in the room as both sides made their case. The boy bravely took the stand and told the truth. "He left us. He beat my mom. He never even remembered my birthday." Gasps filled the courtroom. The CEO's lawyer stood up. "And this man here," she said, pointing to the CEO, "took him in when no one else would. Not out of blood, but out of love." The boy's biological father smirked. "He's brainwashing him. That man wants to raise him as a replacement heir." But the judge interrupted. "Enough." Silence fell. The CEO stood, ready to plead with his heart. "Your Honor, I didn't know he was my brother. But I do know he's changed me. I was rich before, but he made me human." Tears ran down the judge's cheeks. "This isn't a custody battle. It's a rescue." The gavel came down. "The boy stays with his brother." The courtroom erupted. The boy jumped into the CEO's arms. It was over. Ow! Back at the office, the boy found something hidden inside one of the old shoes they had polished together, an envelope from his mother. It's addressed to the CEO. It had never been opened. The CEO's hands trembled as he read her words. "If you're reading this, it means my son found you. Please don't blame yourself for what your father did. Just love him. That's all he ever wanted." The letter ended with something haunting. "And if you're ever lost, go back to the lake." The truth lies there. The CEO blinked. The lake. What truth? He hadn't seen a lake in decades, but something about the words rang like a bell in his soul. The boy didn't understand it either, but he looked at his brother and said, "Then let's go to the lake." And so they packed a small bag and took a long drive, not knowing what secrets awaited them there. When they arrived, the CEO froze. The cabin near the lake was familiar. A memory long buried surfaced his childhood. He used to spend summers there before his father left. The place looked abandoned, but strangely untouched. The boy ran around laughing. "It's peaceful here," he said. "It doesn't feel broken." Inside the cabin, dust covered old shelves, photo frames, and broken chairs. But one drawer was locked. The CEO pried it open, and inside was a stack of letters. His father's letters. To his mother, letters he never mailed. In one, he admitted to another child. "The boy, I couldn't face the shame," the letter read, "so I left them both." The CEO sank to his knees. His father had known all along. The pain in the boy's life, the poverty, the fear it all, could have been avoided. But the cowardice of one man changed their lives. "I promise I'll never be like him," the CEO whispered, clutching the boy. Unbeknownst to them, someone had followed them to the lake, the disgraced CFO who took over the company. He wanted dirt. And finding them in a secret getaway with suspicious letters, it was enough to stir rumors and ruin them further. He snapped pictures quietly from the trees. Back in the city, he leaked the story. Former CEO hiding secret family, embezzlement fears rise. Headlines exploded. The board panicked. The boy's face was plastered everywhere. Paparazzi stormed the cabin the next day like wolves. "Who's the child? Is he really your brother or a love child?" The CEO shielded the boy with his coat. "We're done talking." They fled, but the damage was done. The boy cried silently in the back seat. "Why does the world hate us?" The CEO didn't have an answer. Just a silent vow. "I'll protect you, even if I have to destroy everything I built to do it." The CEO's name, once respected in every boardroom, was now spoken with venom. Investors pulled out. Friends disappeared. People questioned if the $5 boy was just a PR stunt. Headlines screamed betrayal. But the CEO didn't care. All that mattered was the boy's brother safe by his side. They relocated to a modest apartment under a new name. At night, the boy would whisper, "I miss how you used to smile." That hurt the most. The CEO realized how much he'd changed, not from wealth lost, but from innocence stolen. Still, he cooked, cleaned, even read bedtime stories to keep the boy's laughter alive. But inside, he was building something in silence. A plan. He wasn't going to take revenge. He was going to reclaim everything. Not for pride, but for that little boy who once whispered, "Only $5, please." And he knew where to start by exposing the truth behind his fall. A former assistant showed up one day with trembling hands and fear in her eyes. She'd been fired by the new CFO after overhearing too much. "He framed you," she said, slipping him a USB drive. "He altered the books and pinned it on you. He never expected you to walk away quietly." The CEO stayed calm for the boy's sake, but inside, a storm brewed. He waited until the boy was asleep, then plugged in the USB. His heart pounded. The files showed it all: fake transactions, emails, timelines. The betrayal wasn't just professional, it was personal. He contacted a journalist he once trusted. "If you want the real story, meet me tomorrow. Come alone," the journalist agreed. And suddenly, the CEO wasn't just a disgraced businessman anymore. He was a man with receipts and a burning need for justice. The interview aired on a quiet Sunday night. CEO didn't cry. He didn't beg. He laid out the evidence like a surgeon, calm, precise, cutting. The world watched. The journalist gasped.
"Ow!"
"Why now?" they asked. He replied softly, "Because he made my little brother cry, and that's unforgivable." The footage went viral. People who once mocked the boy's $5 request now rallied behind him. "You saved a life," someone tweeted. "Reminded us that money means nothing without heart." The CFO tried to sue, but it was too late. He was already under investigation. The boy watched his brother on TV with awe. "You're not just a CEO," he said. "You're my hero." The CEO hugged him tightly. "No, kiddo, you're mine." The tides had turned, but the storm wasn't over. One day, the boy found a letter tucked inside one of the old books they desalvaged from the lake cabin. It was from their mother. Again. But this time, it came with instructions to a bank account she had opened in secret, years before she died. "If life ever breaks you, this will help you start again." Inside that account was more than money. It had a property deed, a diary, and a picture of the CEO as a baby, smiling in his mother's arms. The CEO fell silent. His mother had planned everything, even after all the hurt. She believed in hope. They visited the property together. It wasn't a mansion, but it was peaceful, a place to breathe. The CEO knelt beside his brother and said, "Let's rebuild our life here. Not from money, but from meaning." For the first time, the boy spoke about his dreams. "I want to build a shelter. Not for people, but for hearts. It's for kids like me who've been tossed away. Not a big place, just warm. With pancakes in the morning and hugs that don't go away." The CEO listened, tears welling in his eyes. This boy had every reason to give up, but instead he dreamed. And those dreams had more value than any stock portfolio. "We'll build it," he said. "Every brick, together." So they drew plans. They painted walls. They used their hands, not hired help. Strangers began to volunteer. Why? Because healing is magnetic. And the boy, with all his scars, was now leading others to light. The board of the company, seeing the CEO's name cleared and the CFO jailed, begged him to return. They offered shares. Apologies. Headlines shifted again. Redemption arc. The CEO who raised a boy and brought down corruption. He declined. "I'm already running the most important company in the world is childhood," he said, placing a hand on the boy's head. But the boy spoke up. "Go back. Fix it. Make it a place where people like us can exist." So he returned, but not to reclaim power. He returned to transform it. He hired differently, led differently. The cafeteria now fed kids after hours. Every employee learned the boy's story. They worked, not out of fear but purpose. One day, the boy was cast as the lead in a school play about bravery. He was nervous. "What if I forget my lines?" he asked. CEO knelt beside him. "Then just speak from your heart. That's how you changed mine." The auditorium was packed. But when the boy stepped on stage, all he saw was his brother's smile in the front row. He performed like the world depended on it. And when he finished, the crowd erupted in cheers. Backstage, a teacher whispered, "He was born for the spotlight." The CEO laughed. "He was born for something bigger. He was born to heal." And for the first time, the boy believed it too.